other people at some point or to do that.
Okay, well, this is our very first virtual client advisory council meeting. So welcome. We're all part of history here.
All right.
And we hope everyone is healthy and safe. It's just been, gosh, so crazy this year. So Paul King, as you all know, from King Wealth Planning, CEO, CFP, and LPL registered principal, I have to say that for compliance, will be facilitating today's meeting. And he's got a few of these under his belt now, so no pressure, Paul. Before I hand everything over to Paul, I have just a few housekeeping items to cover about this platform. So first off, today's meeting will be available through the King Wealth Planning website. It'll take me about a week to get compliance approval, and then I'll notify you when it's available if you want to re-watch the recording. And then next, we want to hear from everyone. So you're all unmuted, and we encourage lots of interaction during the meeting. Due to compliance regulations, the chat feature is disabled. Handouts. Handouts can be found in the handouts section of the toolbar. It's down towards the bottom. The agenda's there, the investor questionnaire, and the Riskalyze brochure are all there in the handouts section. And I think that's about it. So without any further ado, I'd like to kick things off by welcoming Paul. Paul, over to you.
Thank you. And as always, thanks for joining us and giving some feedback to us. We've been doing this for probably 10 plus years, and it's always extremely helpful to keep us on a path of increasing service and doing what's right for the clients. So we got a number of things today. I'm going to try to limit it to an hour because I know being online seems twice as long as an in-person meeting. So we'll get right to the meat of it. Let me share agenda. Does everybody see the agenda?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And is it available as a download too? Let's see if I can pull that up.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So kind of the main topics we'll touch on are communications, is what we've been doing and how you see different versions of our communications and not just us, but in this kind of new normal, if it will, how you see these different ways of interacting. All of you did the Riskalyze process, so we'll go through that new risk assessment and get some feedback on what you saw there. I'll cover what we're calling sustainable investing, is a kind of a new application of old ideas in terms of asset management, and get your feedback on that. You'll be hearing a lot more about it going forward. And then Shannon can touch on events, and we'll kick it off from there. And so we always start, just reiterating our mission, and if anybody has any feedback on our mission and our values, whether it's tonight or anytime, we love to hear it. But I just want to reiterate again, we say through long-term personal partnerships, and really with that personal side in mind, is that we feel like we offer everything that any large firm offers, but that personal touch is what we really want to be known for. So we don't just take on mass numbers of clients. When we take on a client, it's like we know we can serve them and communicate with them on a regular basis. And I think that kind of bore itself out here recently. I wanted to touch on, our second guiding value is that relationship side. And it says we respect and honor our clients and team members and care for others on a deeply personal level. And nothing really hit more than the recent fires. And we had 4 clients lose their homes, or family of clients. and some had businesses impacted. So we set up a, our little help was collecting money and goods and having them delivered. And we ended up, I don't know if people saw the picture of it. Did any see that? Our truckload of stuff. And some of you contributed, and we really appreciate that. So that's our little bit of help, and I'm sure there will be more going forward. And certain personal items, we had one client needed a walker. I mean, they lost everything. And so we went out and bought it and delivered it to them. And, it's those little kind of things that help. So it's way beyond money for us. A second to get back to my start. So let's talk about, it's communication, being able to do all the things that we always did, but with a lot of like the social distancing. We have clients in more than half the states, so we've always done virtual meetings, but now it's become the standard, right? So we've had a few people request in-person meetings. And we can accommodate that, and you'll see the picture in the background there is our large conference room, and we set up a plexiglass shield right down the middle. We do the masks, all the cleaning procedures, everything. So we can do that, but I guess my first question is, how do you contrast virtual meetings versus in-person meetings? What do you see as the difference? Can we deliver everything that you were used to as an in-person meeting online or not? What would we be missing?
For us, I would think it will be basically better for me with a virtual meeting, because I don't have to do the 4 to 5 minute trip down to Campbell and back, and all that. So that saves me time and all that. So and I don't see why not, because basically what we discuss there, we can discuss it online easily. So I don't see any difference for us, speaking for ourselves anyway. So we're okay with it.
Yeah, it's a mindset issue. So it's just an adjustment, right? We haven't done this before, so now we're going to do this way. So similarly, it won't be a big change, just a change, right? Easy to do.
I think for most of us who work, we're kind of used to that online meetings and everything now. I suspect your biggest area of people that may have more issues with it are your older clients who maybe don't have technology or aren't savvy with technology or things like that. So making that easier for them, is something that, would be helpful versus, like I said, having them come in. But that might be harder for like if you have older clients or things like that.
Yeah. And it's really, a lot of times it's that initial technology piece you've got to get over. In fact, I had multiple meetings today, and I always say about half the people end up getting on the call. Otherwise, we just do a phone call. But once they get over that hurdle, it's not so bad. And so, yeah, so I'm hearing, one of the benefits of it is that commute time. I find for me, it's, I may not spend as long in a meeting. Everything seems to be compressed in a virtual call, but that allows me to make more calls. So I can reach out a lot quicker on a phone, virtual meeting, more frequently to people. So it's a different experience in that way. And I know, a couple of you, at least one of you has been in for an on-site meeting. So how about, one of the things that an in-person meeting you can, and we don't do a lot of it, but handing out literature, paper agendas, versus downloading them like we have now. We have these documents here. Any issues around that or how you view that?
It's mainly practice, downloading and that sort of thing, and then figuring out if you have two screens, it's fairly easy. If you have one screen, a little bit more complicated. Like I transferred from my laptop to the second screen here. Now I can see everyone in one row and the menu bars over here. So it's the same thing with the documents.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting used to the tools.
Yeah, I think for us is, for me, when we have the little conference rooms, we have the big screen TV. I know what you're looking at because I'm looking at the exact same thing. And I have a hard time visualizing. I always have to ask people, are you seeing this now? Because I know it's on my screen, but I don't know if you're seeing it, right?
Right. No, that's actually very true. Is not knowing what the other side is seeing, right? And that's the unknown. And I went through that when I was trying to teach classes. I was always trying to think of how the receiving side is looking at the information. And so I had to develop, part of the training is trusting that they are, in fact, seeing what you're trying to project.
Yeah.
Yeah, very much so. So still deal with those issues. It's like, okay, are you getting what I thought I was going to send you?
Yeah. I think a lot more checking in and that question back and forth and trusting that they'll say, I don't know, see what you're talking about. Yeah.
Being flexible is key too, because sometimes technology works great, sometimes it doesn't. And like you said earlier, Paul, you might just have to switch to a phone meeting. And, everyone's just got to stay flexible.
Yeah. So we do have, drawing tools. Just got to get used to using them.
We're okay with the downloading part of it, so it's no big issue for us. So, and I also like it because then I can save it into my files. I don't really have to have paper. It's easy for me to access it. In files. I can find it easier than looking for a file and my paperwork and all that. So, that's I find it more efficient of using electronic versions of it and stuff like that. So so it's been working for us. So and then there was always Shannon. So if there's a problem, you can always go to Shannon and Shannon will guide you.
I'll fix it.
I'll make it available for you. So
Yeah.
So thank you, Shannon, for that too.
Well, and I think
yes,
in my
anytime.
career, I've been really reluctant to use a lot of brochures and, this kind of industry literature, because I find it, you're just throwing stuff at people. Unless they ask for it and say, I want to read through it, fine, we'll give it to you. So I think it's not a big switch for us, and a lot of like prospectuses and stuff have over the years gone virtual, so we can just drop you an electronic document, you can read it that way. Yeah, so, but I do find occasionally there's sort of this illustrative pieces that are harder to do on a screen. But yeah, it's just finding new ways to do that. Shannon, you want to talk about texting, what we're doing in that area? And
Yes, so we now have computer-based texting, which means we can communicate with you directly to your cell phone via texting. And it's connected to our main phone number, which is 408-879-0789, the number you always use to call us at the office. That's our texting phone number. So just to send us a text, you just need to use that number. The benefits of this tool are, if you prefer text to email, we can now accommodate that preference. If we can't reach you otherwise, we now have an additional channel. And in the case of a natural disaster, we can reach folks more quickly via texting most of the time. To use the feature, each person must have, number one, a mobile number. Number two, we must have your mobile number on file to be able to initiate a text to you. Sometimes we'll just have the home phone number or a work phone number. We don't always have the mobile number. And number three, each contact must consent to receiving text. So the first text you will get, whether, it doesn't matter who initiates it, you will receive a text that says, "This is Paul King with King Wealth Planning, Inc. To confirm your consent to receive text and continue, reply with only the word accept." So all you have to do is just type or text accept and hit send, and then that's it. You'll be ready to go. So for those of you that love to text, your dreams have come true. And for those that will not use this feature, that's fine. We'll just continue to email or call depending on your preference. So any questions about texting?
Okay, and that's the 408-879-0789, right?
Yes, our main number. And any feedback on that additional functionality and improved access to our office?
And do you feel like you would use it versus email, or if you do, under what circumstances?
Well, I do like that you said that it's another mode of communication in case of an emergency. I mean, that's very good. For us, or for me, it's a generational issue, so I probably wouldn't text, but I would respond if I got one.
Yeah.
But it, for in our household, it generally, the kids use it, we don't.
We do have some clients that request it. They
Yeah.
want their meeting reminders via text and all communication via text. So for some people, it's a godsend.
Yeah, absolutely.
I
think
prefer it.
that's email would be like first, and texting would be second, I guess. Kind of similar to what Dan had said, is that we text and stuff, but it's not my preferred mode of communication.
And that's fine.
And I think texting sort of the intention is that it's more immediate, is in your face, versus an email you got to go find. Those things kind of blur. And we have some clients that still don't have email. So this is a way we can actually communicate with them. So I think our intention is not to use it, as a new way to, it's not a default way of communicating, but it's there.
An additional way.
Yeah, additional
So
way.
you get new clients, I think, too, and if they're younger, then that's, it's going to transition to be, that's probably their primary mode of communication,
Yeah,
right?
they really like that. You're right.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was telling Shannon, the 5 minutes we were on hold before you guys tuned in, my son gave me 10 text messages. So
How
and I
it
saw
goes.
a slide the other day, there's two types of people in this world. And one was, a single text with all the message contained in one text. And then there was this line, that line, this line, that's his way of communicating. One word at a time, but it's, ding, 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 ding.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the last piece on here, the personal planning website and vault. See if I can turn my pen off here. There we go. Kind of goes along with the virtual meetings, the personal planning website and the vault. Let me advance this. So just as a reminder, or maybe a visual that if you haven't seen it, you know, what the personal planning website we're using, regardless of whether we have an in-person or virtual meeting, and generating reports and things from, but we're much more rely on it for virtual meetings and getting reports put up in the vault here. So we'll put them under the reports folder, and we're just building out that as even a history for you to say, when you had a meeting, here's your reports. You can go back and refer to them. You can print them out. So I guess my first question is sort of, you know, are you familiar with our term personal planning website, that's what we're referring to?
Mhm.
Yep.
It's not a surprise for anybody.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that for me, I probably need an occasional reminder, you know, hey, have you looked at the vault, or, you know, your personal planning thing.
Yeah.
I've gone to it a couple times, and then it's, for me, it's out of sight, so I've forgotten about it.
Yeah, well, that's what I think we're going to do, is start putting all our communications there and reminding you to go in there. So it gets, again, as your thing, Dan, is like, it becomes an easy access because you're used to it. And it's your go-to place for everything, you know? Yeah. So I think we've limited that usage up till now because we were able to do everything in person. It's like just one less place for you to go. And now it's going to be the place to go. Yeah.
And you all know how to access it from our website? Yeah.
It's been a
Yeah, I
while
think-
since I've looked.
What was that?
It's been a while since I think I've looked. I think I'm with Dan, like sometimes out of sight, out of mind, right?
Yeah.
You get statements and things like that, but then still you forget to go necessarily look at online things or whatever. So like I said, sending a reminder periodically, or switching over to that's the place would be good. Because then, like I said, force you to probably go access it more frequently.
Yeah. And we can actually, there is a function within there to do a screen share, which is real easy. If we end up doing GoToMeeting, then I prefer to just share the screen, but we can do it directly from inside this program as well.
Mhm.
And there's a presentation mode, so it eliminates any other clients, so you don't see anybody else's information, screens that out, but that's an easy screen share as well. In case we're, you know, if we're just popping in for one reason, we could do that. Anything else on that? Yeah, so I think that's it, is just building out the functionality of that so everybody understands it's a place that we can put documents, you can put documents and share it with us. And that'll be a great communication tool, because then you can do it by email as well. As, you know, hey, I uploaded, I put something in the vault or an action item, you know, go find it there, respond. So we don't even have to do a phone call or, you know, a web meeting.
Yeah, as an example, you know, I'm looking at my cheat sheet here, and I'm gonna have to go back and find one of my original emails with the information. So, okay, I mean, it's a good reminder.
Yeah, and there's information on the website. Maybe you can speak to that, Shannon, is directions of how to access the website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, under the
User guides.
client resources page, which is where the button is to get to the PPW, just scroll down a little bit and there's instructions
Okay, good
how to
reminder.
access it. So it's all on the same page. You can access it from your phone as well. You can get on our website from your phone and get on there. So
Yeah, that's a good point. There's the mobile apps are there as well.
yeah.
All right, so let's move on to this Riskalyze. So this was a program we subscribed to about a year ago. Then LPL offered a similar risk management program, and it was free for us, so we hopped over on that one. But we really prefer this version. So we're running this. Now, what's happening in the industry and within LPL specifically is they're starting to measure portfolio risk and are able to do this risk scoring for every account, and they're going to hold us to certain targets. So if you sign up for a growth account, it'll be, an 80 to 100 range, and they'll want us to incorporate investments that meet that on a portfolio level. So so we're going to start utilizing this for every client. Right now it's just for you to get some feedback. Traditionally, we had done, share. We had done this investor questionnaire, if you've seen that one, right? It was whatever it is, 31 questions. And from that, a number of those questions were hard scored. They had a numeric score to them, and a number were just sort of discussion points for us. So this is still our standard. And now introducing the new Riskalyze process to see both how they line up. So the information we got from here, we assign people to a certain type of portfolio. And now we're doing the Riskalyze and seeing, some cases they line up, some cases they're very different. So which one's going to tell us how to work with the client to get them to the right, risk level. So get back. And this is just some screenshots from inside the program. And so we will be doing this for each of you individually, is to show you what your risk score really is. And I don't know if I can blow that one up, but if you can see the area I'm pointing at here, you see this area? It's probably real small for you, but what it's showing is a range of returns that probability says that within 95% of the time, it's going to be, in this case, a minus 10% to a plus 16%. And it gives you some dollar figures, like how much could you lose or how much could you gain? So it gives a much more realistic picture of, can I stand that, on the low end? And is it targeting the average return that I want? So, you'll see that for yourself. And I think it'll be a lot clearer for you is that the right target for you? And we can always adjust it, And there's, a lot more statistical stuff. And then one of the really nice things too is they've built in some scenarios to say, well, what happens to a portfolio like yours in these real situations? In 2013, there was a bull market. If that happened, what would happen to your portfolio? If there was a bear market like 2008, what would happen? If interest rates went up, what would happen? So again, some realistic scenarios to say, we know what the average is, but what happens in these situations? Can you tolerate? So let's get back to just the questionnaire though. So you went through this process of doing this selection. It'll ask you, would you like a set return or do you want this range of returns? And so how did you see that process? Like, was it difficult to do, easy to do, confusing, very straightforward? What did you think when you were going through it?
This is on the questionnaire one or on the Riskalyze analyze?
Riskalyze.
Okay. I was a little confused. Or I had trouble with maybe just conceptually, maybe the way I think about it. I know in some of those scenarios it said, you know, you're willing to risk this much for this much loss. And I was having trouble kind of quantifying that in my head. So it made it kind of complicated for me. And maybe that's just the way maybe I don't think about it. I mean, I understand the concept, but I was just having trouble trying to digest it and figure out what I was really trying to put in terms of the numbers and things. So there was, I think as part of that, there was also like something where it says like what you're expecting in terms of return. So I was kind of looking at that more because like I said, I was just having conceptual problems trying to figure out like, you know, how much do I want to risk for this much loss or things like that. I mean, the concept made sense, but I don't know, maybe that day my brain wasn't thinking very well or something, but I was kind of struggling with that.
Yeah, I had, you know, similar concerns because I don't think of money in that way. And so it was an adjustment in terms of, okay, now I'm, quote, now I'm almost like at a, you know, at a casino.
Yeah.
And it kind of in that sense. And so I, you know, I don't think in that terms when it comes to my personal money. And maybe that's, you know, my head's in the sand perhaps, but, you know, I did have difficulty with the concept. Right. And then also I was factoring in, okay, I know at some point, you know, there's the Paul King factor or the LPL factor that steps in. And, you know, I had made adjustments based on trends. And so my concern is this mean that we're going towards a more computerized analysis, you know, in terms of investment and that sort of thing? And so I had little difficulty, you know, making that adjustment.
Yeah, I had kind of, you know, same issues because, you know, when I was working, that was one way of thinking about it. We never thought about it that way. It's kind of money in there that we're putting in there for, you know, when we get to retire and, you know, to do something. So we had it in a high risk area and we were okay with it, you know, going one way or the other. But since we're retired, kind of, you know, you change your attitude, you know, kind of being a little bit more reserved about things. So going through some of the questions, I had some questions about, so I kind of, you know, gave it, you know, whatever I thought it, you know, the way it will affect us now. Again, I wish I could discuss some of the questions, you know, with somebody with more experience about it. You know, it's kind of what do you really mean by this, or how it will affect me, you know, and my position now, you know. So I think that's, you know, really what I was looking for, you know. So, you know, so, but anyway, we gave it a shot, you know, we did our best with it. So, but I would like to review it again, you know, with somebody maybe, you know, of your experience, or kind of go and say, you know, what do you really mean by this, or am I in the right waters here, or am I too deep or too shallow? Either one, you know. So yeah.
Well, I think all your input is extremely valid and backs up a lot of what I was thinking. So we have this mathematical process. They you know, tout this as the, you know, new way to do it. But I find most people, including myself, can't. It's sort of apples and oranges. Do I want this range of returns or this given return? Well, those are two different things. And until you see output, which is this sort of range of returns, then it starts making more sense. I'd rather work with this piece. In fact, we can work with this and do the slider to say, you know, we can make more or less risk and more or less average return. So where are we on that scale? A lot easier to see than trying to do this question answer process. So we have thought that we might do both. I'm not sure if I would use their process because I think it's just a confusing piece. I would rather use the question answer process we've always done. And as Vince said, it is a conversation. That's why a lot of those questions are in there, there's not a one right answer. I just want to talk to you about it and get at an idea, because then through my experience and knowing the portfolios, we can place you where we think it's right, you know? And then we can use this model, to show you what the real returns would look like. Okay, I can plug in the model and say, all right, this is going to be your experience in a bad market, a good market, in a rising rate environment. This is what you should expect, right? And then you can say, okay, that is it, or no, we need to tweak it a little further, right? So I think that's really good feedback. Yeah.
How close would this be to, like some firms or companies have where you do your own investment selection, that sort of thing?
I was just going to go there from what your comments were. Is the world kind of going this what they call robo-advisor way? Because that's what's happening. You're going online, you're answering some questions, and the computer models it for you and says, plugs you into this model. And then that model is just, runs itself. There's not input from our standpoint as to like economic scenarios changing, different investments come out. It's just sort of, here's your mutual fund portfolio and that's it. So yeah, I don't think you're going to see, we're not doing that. And certainly, and we do have that offering. I just have not decided to turn it on, this sort of robo-advisor thing. I'm like, the people that work with me want that personal touch. If not, it's available, go ahead. There's low-cost alternatives out there, but they are just a set model based on your own inputs. So, and this program also has a check-in feature, or you can set it, but I'll probably do it like twice a year. Just it sends out an email and kind of checks in, and then we come back and review it. So, yeah. So I'll get more feedback when I have time with each of you, is to go through the actual output, and then we'll see what the total experience is like. Right now, I was really questioning that questionnaire process because I found it really difficult to do, and I have half a mathematical brain, but I found trying to make those choices were really difficult.
So, question: is there a presumed level of knowledge about quote, money and various, entities, right? A working knowledge of the stock market, a working knowledge of bonds, that sort of thing. Because that, in my mind, that would factor into your quote, knowledge of, right? You're selecting risk and you're assuming that you have a skill level in terms of being able to measure, okay, I have this much knowledge about this, and so I'm comfortable playing in this arena.
Right. No, I think you're right. It would be for more an investor that has experience with a diversified account and has been paying attention to what the risk really was. If you don't have that, I don't know how you answer those questions. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that'll account for, each of you is different, but I have seen some pretty major discrepancies between how we have a client pegged in terms of our portfolio and what the numbers coming out here, better or worse, or more conservative to aggressive. It's just there's a mismatch, and we've got to reconcile that and come to a right conclusion. So I'll be interested to have the conversations, and I'll try to do that over the next month or so. Meet with each of you. Yeah, and the last topic here, and it's really the question I'm going to have is more, what do you need to know about it? How would you like it delivered? But when I started in this business 30 years ago, this is what I kind of thought I would be doing, was what we called socially responsible investing back then, which is, what things are good for the planet, what are good, social values. The governance wasn't really there. That's sort of a new thing. So now there's a lot of different terminology thrown around, whether you call it socially responsible or this what's called environmental social governance factors. Sustainable investing is the umbrella that LPL's chosen, is more, a holistic type of thing. But they're all about not just looking at a company as a mathematical piece, but what are they contributing, or what are the risk factors involved in all these areas. The Fortune 500 companies now are really holding themselves a lot to these standards. There's a lot of things happening with the UN and their sustainable investing initiatives. So it's kind of a match now between the investment world and the corporate world, and starting to drive a lot of these types of issues. In the past, there's been a lot of debate is, okay, if we're limiting ourselves to certain types of companies, is that going to hurt our returns? And there was no study that would show one way or the other. But lately, especially the first half of this year, was these factors actually helped returns a little bit, and certainly helped on risk level. So, think about a company that's doing things right in terms of corporate governance. You see bribery and corruption and, a code of ethics. Well, those are good things. You may avoid a lot of errors that a company might make. But then there's more, impactful things like, are they doing things for climate change, or, human rights things? So depending on a particular, let's say a mutual fund might adopt very proactive stances here, or they might just screen out, take a more neutral approach. So there's all different types of strategies in these areas. But I had built portfolios out for individual clients that were requesting these types of things, had certain things they were looking for. And then with the recent information about not hurting returns, may help on risk, I was like, it really is time to start employing this across everything we do anyway. So in our managed accounts, I'm starting to incorporate those. We've added a number of different funds that have these types of factors. We've got a webinar planned for, when is that, Shannon? Is the Domini one? Is that October?
11/18. 11/18. Yeah.
So in November, we'll do a session with one of the major fund companies that will, walk us through a lot of these concepts. And this slide is about, how they've become more and more popular, especially in the last, 5 years. So we see the adoption really happening. So what sort of, it's a multifaceted type of concept. Oh, hi, Margaret.
Hi, Margaret. So glad. Sorry about the confusion.
Popped in on us. What sort of questions do you have on it? What, what information are we going to need to bring forward for you to, either feel comfortable with it or have questions about? And have you heard of the, these types of things, whether it's environmental social governance or socially responsible? Have you heard the terms? Has it been introduced to you before?
You heard the terms, or I've heard the terms.
Say it again.
I'd say that I've heard the terms. I've never specifically looked into those
What they are.
types of investments. Like I said, there's not as much. You have to probably dig a little bit more in terms of getting the details about, returns relative to other types of investments and things like that, which I've never done, but I've heard of those types of investments.
Well, and it really was a niche sort of industry. There was only a few fund companies doing it, each one a little differently. But it's really the last 5 years has been an explosion. You'll find almost every fund company has some sort of strategies out there.
Yeah. I mean, I think initially off the top of my head,
a full portfolio before was the thing. We could only pick a couple of niches.
I think initially when I kind of thought about it, off the top of my head, it seemed like returns and things probably weren't as good as standard investments. But like you said, I think over the last few years, because these types of companies and the types of things that they do are becoming a lot more popular and a lot more innovative and things like that, that the returns are probably either catching up or on par with other types of investments, right?
Yeah. So definitely we need to address that return issue.
Yeah, I would definitely like to hear about it, and then, see what our choices are and stuff like that. But, I think it's a great idea, really.
Yeah, I was thinking on the positive side that most of these would be in what we would, I'm just using the term emerging markets, looking forward, that sort of thing. In terms of, that's what generally causes are your future looking. And so in that sense, the markets would tend to be positive in that sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now on the others, the other side of me, right, the greed side of me hasn't, kind of, my head's in the sand and not paying attention to specific firms, right? Because I know most of the things are in different kinds of mutuals. I do get concerned when I saw the name Chase. And so, but I gave it just momentary thought, okay, now I'm looking at the rest of the thing, they seem to have diversed into many areas, as opposed to, quote, what I was reading in the news, right, 10 years ago about them or that sort of thing. So, yeah, there are changes. And so I'm seeing the old names come up in new ways. And so I have like, okay, I'll keep an eye on it just to see if they really are, quote, in my mind, legitimate in terms of their causes and that sort of thing.
Well, and there are sustainability ratings for companies, and now like Morningstar puts out sustainability ratings for mutual funds and exchange traded funds as well. So you can see kind of, they've looked at certain criteria and looked under the hood, kind of give you a quick view so you don't have to read all the news and literature on a company to figure it out. Yeah.
I think as a business for you, probably, it makes sense to, have that, right? Because these types of, I think, investments or these types of causes, the people are very passionate about it. So as you get new clients again, there's going to be some people, whether they're just general investing for retirement, or there may be people that are, passionate about these kinds of things that are looking specifically to have part of their portfolio, include some of those investments, right? It's not for everybody, but there's definitely like I said, maybe it's probably more than a niche than it used to be, but there's definitely clients that you'll have that are interested in some of those types of investments.
Yeah, and you can find them, as narrow as, equity fund, and, climate change fund. Our intention is to build a portfolio. Let's find those things that fit our. Margaret typing. It's loud. So that's, I think that's everything we had. Oh, we can talk about the webinar series. So we're trying to, bring out really relevant, timely topics. We completed this optimizing resources for layoff or career transition, which turned into a lot about retirement planning as well, and all the new, COVID laws, and there's a lot in that. So I'll let you talk about the rest, Shannon, and what you're doing in terms of posting the replays.
Okay. So what we have coming up is the long-term care webinar. That's the next one in our Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise series. And that will be Wednesday, October 7th at 12:30 p.m. And I had a quick question for everyone. Number one, have you attended one of these recent webinars? And if so, how does the midday time frame work for you?
Perfect. Yeah, at least for me, the midday works well because I've been on, right, I've been all summer long listening to webinars on long distance learning, right? And so midday works well.
Midday's works well with me as well, because it's a break in the day from work for me. And I think I did one once before that you had, and it was good.
And we try to limit them to 30 to 40 minutes. We know they're, you know, online, again, everything seems compressed. So shoot for 30 minutes, and if we go a little bit over, it works, but certainly not an hour. So yeah, you can fit it for lunch and still have time to eat.
Right.
And all of our webinars and presentations are posted on our website under client resources. So if you didn't get to participate in one, you can go there and get the information that you need. Long-term care, talked about that. And then another Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise webinar we're excited about, which Paul just talked about, is the Sustainable Investing session, which would be Wednesday, November 18th at 12:30.
And for most of the series, and true for all of these, we want to bring on an expert in the area. And then I'm doing it as kind of a Q&A. I know I'm curious about a lot of things, but I also try to interpret what my clients might be most interested in. So that's what I get them to focus on. So we have some talks beforehand. I give them a list of topics and they have some slides for it. And then I kind of say, hey, you know, what about this? What about that? And make them really current and relevant. So the long-term healthcare is truly an, you know, expert in the field, and bringing up a lot of the things around, you know, what we're seeing in senior care facilities, the COVID, and what impacts for laws, healthcare, a lot of things that are happening there. So definitely, you know, that's something in terms of the planning, I think all of you would get something from. And sustainable investing is going to be, Domini is a mutual fund company that's been leading the way in this for years and years. So that's going to be good.
Okay.
And
All
then
right.
also wanted to ask if any of you had any suggestions for upcoming webinars. No? We
Top of
covered
mind.
all the topics you need.
Or maybe make a topic on what we were talking about, the investment, you know, of how you decide, you know, how risky you want it or something like that too.
Okay.
I don't know. So
Yeah.
Risk management.
yeah, risk management and all that, and you know, and how to gauge yourself, you know, better and all that, you know, for present and future.
Okay. All right.
You think of others, send them in. Shannon's got a list going.
Yeah, I'm already
Working on 2021.
booked 2021, so your
Yeah.
idea.
Hopefully it will be a better year than the 2020, that's for sure.
Oh, yes. It has to be, right? It has to be.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's all I have. Anything else, Paul?
No, I appreciate again, all the feedback's really super helpful. And so Margaret, you joined late, but we're going to try to get this recording up online so you can hear that. And I'll be touching bases individually with each of you on that risk assessment questionnaire, the results of it, and getting some feedback on what the output looks like and what you see is the full process there. So,
Yeah, I would like to review it with you again and kind of make sure we're on the track that we want to be. You know, so definitely that will be helpful. Thank you.
And it's really intended to be an annual process, is to make sure we're tracking that, because you know our attitudes change, markets change. We want to make sure you're always tuned up, and that'll give us it's a much easier tool than some of the stuff we've done in the past. Is sort of, again, interpreting what you're saying in terms of the risk and then assigning it to something, but you can't see the risk until it actually happens to you.
Yeah.
We're trying to like show you what it looks like in advance a lot better.
Sounds good.
All right.
Very good.
Enjoy the evening and the dark weather.
Thanks.
Stay safe and healthy.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Good to see you all.
Good.
All right.
Okay,
Have a great night.
Good night.
bye.
Good night.